looking at the landscape of what was currently out there, I was like, well, how can I be different? How can I be unique in the space? From look, from name to field, from our advertising, all that stuff. But that was the same way I kind of approached my runs.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's doing this trick, that guy's doing that trick, but nobody's doing this. And if I drop in and just do that, I'm already different from the rest of the pack. And a bunch of that stuff. Yeah, a bunch of that stuff started happening over my career. Well, yeah, exactly.
There's that.
Then you got to go do it. Yeah, and that's where the training and the hard work comes in, obviously. And that same thing with the business side as well. I feel like, you got to put in the time. You got to like get in the weeds with it all.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Studio podcast. I'm your host, Chris Allen, and today we're in the studio with one of the world's top snowboarding champions and lifestyle brand builders, the Shaun White. Shaun, welcome to the show.
Than's for having me.
Absolutely.
It's great. What a setup.
Glad you made it. Glad you were here.
Yeah, of course.
Fresh from California.
Yep, just came in.
Yeah. Well, the cool part is we're just fresh off the Winter Olympics. Mm-hmm. And when most people hear your name, they think 3-time Olympic gold medalist, snowboarding champion, but that's not, all the story. That's one of the reasons we wanted to sit down and have a conversation with you, because you're involved in several entrepreneurial ventures, including the performance brand White Space and the Snow League, which we would definitely want to talk about. So tell me, what's the through line? What's the thing that really connects the Shaun White competitor on the mountain with the Shaun White entrepreneur in the marketplace?
It's a great question. I always felt like it was a mix of things for me. I think being competitive is an amazing asset just because I was always striving for, well, how can it be better? What can we do? Like, what's the angle? And then, setting goals, obviously, in sport, it's really important. Knowing where you want to get to at what point in time, especially for something like the Olympics, you want to crescendo at the right moment. You want to get to the right place at the right time in those, all the way down to that hour window of competition. And you need to be at your peak at that moment. So timing was everything as well. And so a lot of that crosses over into the business side of things, where I sit down and I look at the sort of landscape. Let's take White Space, for example. That was something where, I had been inspired by people that came before me. I grew up around Jake Burton, who owned Burton Snowboards, Tony Hawk, Birdhouse Skateboards. These guys that like owned their own brands and did their own thing and really like made products that changed the sport. And everybody wanted to ride for their companies. It was a big deal. And so looking at the landscape of what was currently out there, I was like, well, how can I be different? How can I be unique in the space? From look, from name to field, from our advertising, all that stuff. But that was the same way I kind of approached my runs. Yeah. I'm like, he's doing this trick, that guy's doing that trick, but nobody's doing this. And if I drop in and just do that, I'm already different from the rest of the pack. And a bunch of that stuff. Yeah, a bunch of that stuff started happening over my career. Well, yeah, exactly.
There's that.
Then you got to go do it. Yeah, and that's where the training and the hard work comes in, obviously. And that same thing with the business side as well. I feel like, you got to put in the time. You got to like get in the weeds with it all.
When you're sort of imagining the competition, the competitor in you, who do you sort of imagine when you're like, no, is it the people that you're competing with? Is it competing with yourself? Are you competing with numbers? Like what's the thing you sort of compete with in your mindset?
I felt like for the longest, I was just competing with everyone. I was trying to be as good as them and just like be considered a real athlete, because snowboarding wasn't really a desired sport in the community I grew up in. Obviously, Colorado's a lot different. Certain places really support winter sports, but sunny California down at the beach and San Diego area, like they were like, you want to do what? So no one really understood what I was doing. And then later on in life, I felt like, and one other thing was I was a kid. I was pro at 13 and all of my competitors were in their mid to upper 20s. And so I was like, these Pokemon cards are pretty cool, guys. And they're just like, what? Like me trying to explain, they evolve. They get the Pokemon, they evolve. And I just remember sitting there trying to explain this. And I'm like, we're not going to be as tight as I'd hoped. So there was like an age gap and it's sort of like, disconnect from where I came from. So I felt like I was always trying to fight to get to this place within the sport. And And then I finally did it. I was probably 15, and I remember, I'll never forget, I was competing here in Colorado. I want to say Breckenridge, and I was trying to make the Olympic team. It was my first chance to go to the Olympics. I'm in first place, need a first place finish to make the team, and there's one more guy to go. JJ Thomas. He drops in, takes the slot, takes first place by like 0.3 of a point.
Oh man.
And I was pretty devastated, you know. And at that point I was a kid. I was like, it's like I got everyone's going on the field trip except me, and you know what I mean? I was just like so frustrated and disappointed and whatnot. But at that point I realized like it's not enough to be as good as everyone else. You gotta be better. You gotta have something that's different. And so I stopped aiming for what was going to match my competitors. I started going for like what's gonna win. What's gonna be the next thing. And then after winning, you know, that's probably the hardest part, is to win after winning, because you've reached the top. And then you start competing with yourself. You're like, okay, well, I did this last season. How do I one up that? And who cares that this person's doing whatever? Like, let's just keep going. Like, let's push this. What's next? And that way you're really motivating from a different place. You're not really looking over the fence at what others are doing. You're like, what am I doing? Yeah. What am I doing today? Obviously you're taking inventory of what's happening in the sport, but for the most part, you're just kind of battling with yourself.
You know, the getting to 3 was such a big story, right? And you really did an unlock that when you talked about this in sort of our pre-conversation, it really, it resonated with me. You know, like the book Good to Great's got this, you know, hedgehog concept. This is the thing you repeat and you do over and over and over and over. And one of the unlocks that you had said was like, okay, I could strategically choose to get the outcome I'm looking for. I got to have this run, and that run's got to look like this. Unpack that, because that was that was a huge unlock that I think has a huge parallel in business as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's all kind of visualizing, right? And I got crazy with it. I would just visualize everything. What am I gonna listen to when I drop in? What will I be wearing? What would I say at the bottom in my interview? Like, what would it be like after to feel the victory, and what would I do? And all these things, you know, and so I would kind of like start planning and really dream up this huge sort of, you know, the biggest dream possible, and then go at that and pick it away piece by piece. But, you know, I think it's also being aware and like being in it. I don't know how to describe it. Best would be an example. I was surfing with a buddy of mine, and this was like, we're gearing up for the, I want to say 2010 Vancouver Olympics, and I'm surfing, we're hanging out, and he's like, yeah, you got to win that next Olympics, huh? And I'm like, yeah, no pressure, like for sure. And, you know, we're paddling around. I was like, God, you know, it's been so hard lately, because I go to the resort, and, you know, with the newfound success from the first Olympics, you know, big red hair, everybody recognized me. It wasn't hard to get around. People would be trying to take selfies at the half pipe wall. Hey, it's my daughter's birthday. Would you just talk to her as I'm trying to drop in? And
that's rad.
Do some trick that's like really dangerous. And it's a beautiful part about our sport that you get access. There's not many like basketball courts you could just walk on and try to like get a selfie with LeBron while he's doing his free throw practice, you know, but you know, that's a beautiful part of our sport. You have accessibility to the athletes, but I was like, man, what if we trained in private? Like, what if we went somewhere that wouldn't happen? I can completely focus. I'm not chasing the half pipe. And at that time, you know, the half pipe at maybe 12 o'clock has the best sunlight. But at the public resort, I would show up and it would be just slop by then, because it's slushy and, you know, all the athletes had gone through it. Yeah. It's just like aftermath, but I'm like waiting for the backside wall to get sunny or something like that. So it's like, oh, we can really train when I want to train. I don't got to worry about that. And then we can film, we can bring in helicopters, we can do all these things. And so we just kept dreaming up this dream of a private half pipe. And then I was like, man, you know, what they're doing in gymnastics is pretty crazy. They're jumping into foam pits. And we had talked a little before, but Woodward, I mean, they have these huge foam pits. It's like, why aren't like, the technology's there. I'm watching Travis Pastrana try double backflips into a foam pit. It's like, why don't we do that in snow? And so it's kind of having the vision and having the dream and then going for it. And at that time, you know, I was with Red Bull, and I was like, who's crazy enough to want to do this with me? So it's like, of course, these guys. They're like, yeah, sure. That was the easiest phone call. So, you know, it's kind of having the vision and then pursuing it. And at that point, you know, double flips were being done in the backcountry of the sport because it's a natural foam pit. These guys, I want to say it was JP Walker, he, kind of former, handrail urban snowboarder, went into the backcountry and started doing these crazy double flips. And so I was like, how can we replicate that? And then the foam pit idea, and it all just kind of came together. And then I started dreaming up different tricks and how to pursue that and what was next. But it was constantly kind of being in a place of like, how do I excel? Like, how do I get a leg up on my competition? How do I, put the pressure or come up with something unbeatable? And it was like, that was kind of like what just stirred me every single day. I would just kind of think those thoughts.
Yeah. And you really picked apart everything that was in your way, and you systematically took it all apart. But the thing that I really love that you said is that you're like, I sat and imagined what I would say, what I would wear.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it's a huge thing that I think is a undervalued aspect, because it isn't, that is not empty. That is not empty time wasted. That's like, that's when the creator in you is alive.
Yeah. And it's fun. It's like, it doesn't always have to be this like, of course I wanted to win the Olympics, but having that is like, I got to win the Olympics. That's like such a daunting mountain to climb.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had these like sub goals, and some of them would be like, I was turning, 16 or whatever. I was like, how many cars can I win? Because I remember they were handing out cars. I was going to get my license. Like, I got to get these cars. But by getting the car, I was winning the events, which meant I was heading to the Olympics kind of thing.
Yeah. How many cars did you win?
I had a few cars. There was like 5 or 6 cars. It was insane. I was like, no way. There was like a Suzuki Sidekick. There was 2 Jeeps. I want to say like 2 Volvos and something. It was pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Honestly, I ended up donating them. I didn't even know what to do. There was like a battered, it's heavy. There was a battered women's shelter nearby, and they needed vehicles to go pick people up from certain situations and these things. Cool. And I was like, hey, like, let's just, I'm not driving these and my family's fine. And like, you know what I mean? And there's great tax implications and things. And I was like, oh, this is great. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
But the other story I wanted to tell, which is so funny, I don't really tell it very often, but I was super inspired by Guns N' Roses. Axl Rose in this video is like running around stage in these like American flag shorts. They're really short shorts. It's aggressive. And I was like, that's a cool look. I don't know if I can, I'm going for the shorts, but maybe pants. Pants would be cool. Cause I remember after my first appearance at the Olympics, I was put on the cover of Rolling Stone, and I was like, this is insane. Like,
what am I going to wear?
And I remember watching Almost Famous, all these things, and it's Rolling Stone. Only 2 other athletes had been on the cover before. It was Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan. So I was so thrilled to be the third. It was pretty wild.
The Rolling Stone Rushmore.
Insane,
that's pretty cool.
And so I was like, well, what if I win again and they call me again? I'd be ready with these pants. It was this whole thing about these pants. And so I had these pants made, and I had the tailor and all these things. And it just became all about these pants. And so like, it was like the fun goal of, winning the Olympics, and it made it all. And sorry, long story short, but the whole dream, this all started with seeing Guns N' Roses memorabilia and Billy Idol's like stuff at the Hard Rock Casino in Las Vegas. And I was like, man, I'm an athlete, but like, how could I get something into this hotel on display? I was like, well, if I were to be on the cover of Rolling Stone, and I did have the pants, I did the thing, maybe it would be. And it all happened.
No
It all
way.
happened. I made the thing. I won the Olympics. Rolling Stone called. We shot the cover. We like lit my snowboard on fire as like a throw to Jimi Hendrix, and then the burnt board, the pants, and like the cover of the magazine were all on display at the Hard Rock there.
That's so rad.
And it's crazy because like you can dream it up, and every day was like a little like, okay, I got the pants made. Oh, they got them tailored. Oh, this is so cool. And like every little step was like toward that big goal. Yeah. I don't know. So anyways.
I mean,
the pants.
The wild part about that is like, there's the gold medal, and then there's obviously what success comes from that. But like, you have this whole adjacent visual thing that you're going to go do. Like, well, if I do that connects to this. Pants are going to happen. Hard Rock Casino is going to happen. And it all did. That's really rad. paying off that story's got to be really hard.
And things in a smaller way would happen, obviously. And some things don't go to plan. You got to pivot and whatever. But yeah, like I'm just trying to show how much I've really visualized everything,
the thing is that the wildest part about the height that you get, like you just go, I mean, even on your book, right? The height is like over where they're measuring and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty freaking risky, right? So like, how does Shaun White process risk?
Yeah.
There's physical body, and stuff. And then it's like your whole sort of, I'm going to say relationship with risk is probably different than most people. So I just thought it'd be great to unpack like what goes through your mind, or do you not even see that as risky?
Yeah. No, it's a great question because I'm completely the opposite of what people would think. I mean, maybe there's like one guy I know that's that crazy. I think Travis Pastrana maybe like wakes up and is like, I just need to jump out of something today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm much more calculated. Like I know when it's the time to push the gas and throw some new tricks or do whatever. But a lot of times it's like watching poker on TV. Like that's edited down to the best hands that are being played.
Yeah.
Right. Where for me, but if you sat there, they're just folding and folding and folding, waiting for the right hand to play. And I felt like it was very much like that for me in the sport. It was always a marathon, not a sprint. And so I was like very calculated in when I wanted to do the tricks and when not to. And then the risk and the fear was just like, you just get a relationship with it. And my mom taught me this kind of valuable lesson when I was younger. We were watching people learning how to do backflips. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's a pretty wild thing because
only my kids.
Well, I hope this didn't happen, but they ride up to the jump and the whole time they're like, I'm going to do a backflip. And then they start doing a backflip and they get upside down and they go, I don't want to do a backflip anymore. And they stop. And then they land on their heads, and it's like, it's the ones that actually commit and flip around. You end up on your butt, on your back, on your side, anything but landing on your head, And so you just needed, and for me, it was I needed to learn just the level of commitment that it takes to do this sport. Like if I'm going to do it, I got to go for it. And I would just make a decision. And the more you do that, the more the muscle memory trains itself to be like, okay, I am scared, I am nervous, but if I'm going to do this, I'm doing it. And so that switch would just kind of happen. But yeah, there's plenty of days where like getting in that mindset just wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's cold. I'm jet lagged. I'm over it. I'm hungry. What time is it? You know what I mean? And so I would wait for it to be a good scenario and then I would push on the gas. But yeah, it was all about timing and really kind of like being, if you weren't afraid, that's a worrisome thing. I was definitely always a bit of fear going into it. And then the only times I wasn't afraid was during a contest.
Really?
Just because it's like, I don't know, the pressure's so great. It helps so much for me, at least. Like, I'm like, I have to do it. I have to. Everyone's here. The cameras are on. I want to win. I have to do it. And it took the seed of doubt away. You know what I mean? Wow. So if I was at the top during practice, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for the double McTwist, 1260 or double whatever. And I'd be like, okay, next run, I'll do it. There's no next run. This is it. So it was a luxury to show up at the contest because I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing it. Obviously, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to put my best foot forward and go for it. And that usually, yielded the best results for me because I was just all in. There was no backing out. And I was pretty terrible during practice. Not always, but some days, like I would just show up and be kind of garbage, especially at the 2018 Olympics. It was hilarious. I was not looking good. I'm falling all over the place. I can't see. I'm trying to change my goggle lenses. Each run, I'm trying a new lens. I can't see anything. It's overcast. It's cold, kind of windy. And I'm like, well, all days, today's the day I can't even stand on my feet. And something clicked in my head because I was like, well, I know that when the contest starts, like, I'm going to deliver because I have to. Mm-hmm. And that was the sort of, energy I would take into the contest. I'd find the silver lining either way,
Yeah, you know how to arrest the moment for sure.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not I would put in the normal category of just being like, well, everybody's here. I got to do it. Most people are like, everybody's here.
Yeah.
What if I don't do it?
Yeah. No, I think it's all how you spin it too. Cause I remember people like, how do you deal with the pressure of the media and the people? Cause these billboards start going up.
Oh yeah.
before you even made the team. And, the commercials running on NBC are hopeful Shaun White's coming back for his it's just like, it can be stifling, that pressure. And for some reason, I just loved it. I was like, oh my God, everybody believes I can do this. Wow. I must be able to do this. Oh my, not like everyone's expecting it. Like everyone believes in me. Let's go. You know what I mean? It was like a building block for me rather than like something that weighed me down. And no one could put more pressure on me than myself.
Yeah.
I was such a hard critic of myself at every twist and turn. If I wasn't performing the way I wanted to, subtle tweaks, things like, so that outside pressure never really got to me. It was just like what I was dealing with internally for the most part. But yeah.
Well, you were really good at showing up different, right? And I think talking about white space, right? I think it really started to show up where like, you got the long red hair, one of the things you said, you're like, when people were doing this, I was doing that.
Yeah.
I was like, now that Shaun really thinks in a differentiated way. And when you think of white space, what was the connection of thinking different and sort of identifying a market gap? Because it's a crowded space.
For sure. And it's a tough space.
Yeah.
Like buying a snowboard is kind of like buying or leasing a car. People keep their boards forever.
Yeah.
Like instruments, it's like, oh, I still have my Burton, whatever. I still got my Sims, whatever it is. And so, and they almost become collector's items at a certain point over time. And so when somebody's standing there and they're looking like, oh, I could get the board I know, it's going to be there for me. Or I could try this new board, white space board. You really got to win the trust of that consumer. And so my name will only get us so far. So immediately I just started diving into like, what's going to make the best board? How do I test and ride all these boards? And simultaneously they had changed the wax that we're allowed to use for the Olympics to be more environmentally friendly, right? So they changed from floral wax to something else, and everybody kind of scrambled to get new boards that had a different base material that would take the new wax better. And so everyone's scrambling. There's a factory out of Switzerland that everybody's getting their boards made, and I started building boards with them. I was fresh out of my Burton contract, and I was like, okay, let's just give it a pause. Simultaneously, Jake Burton had passed away. The company, we didn't know what the future was, and something like that makes you start looking at your own life and time on this earth and these things. Yeah. And I was like, wow, where do I want to be in the next 5-10 years? So that vision started to grow and build, and now I got these new boards, and okay, what's different? And like you said, I wanted to be unique. I want to be different. So I called the company. I'm like, hey, what base color is everybody getting? They're like, oh, well, Scotty's going all black, and Ayumu's going all, so-and-so's going all black. Everybody just got the same black base. And I was like, because black is the fastest material in colorway for some reason. And I was like, well, I want the speed, but I want to be unique. So I was like, give me just like a white stripe down the base. And that set me apart from the other athletes. So you'd look up at the pipe and just see me there.
Yeah.
And then the name White Space came about. I was like, oh, there's a white space on my board. White space is a term used for like a gap in the market, a void waiting for something new, a blank canvas. Like so much of what my approach to the sport was that. It's like the gap in the market, what's, waiting to be done that hasn't been done yet. And so then when I started looking at the marketplace, I was like, God, there's a lot of like dragons and skulls and pandas with waves that are on fire. And, it's nothing wrong with those graphics. I was just like, how do we be unique? I was like, let's go with something simplistic and clean, just white space with, like let's take the stripe off the base of the board and put it on the top under the binding. So it's not overbearing when you're looking down, but it's a white space board. And just these subtleties of just like, okay, we'll stand out on the floor pad. And then I think my favorite decision was, I remember having just such a hard time coming up with base graphics for when I had a pro model at Burton. And I remember seeing, any brand, but the one that really called out to me was the women's shoe brand, Louboutin. I didn't even know the name for a minute, but I just knew the red sole of these shoes, and I could see it. And I just knew that was that brand. And that it was expensive or that it was fancy. I still don't actually know what the price point is, but it, I just spotted it. And I was like, we need that for our brand. Why not do something that no one else is doing and just have the same base graphic for every single board. And that's our calling card. When you see that white space, that white stripe flying through the air, you know that's our board. That's it. When you're looking up at the chairlift, riding down the mountain, like those are the white stripes. Those are our boards. And so almost like Porsche doesn't change the body style too much. There's subtle variations, but this is what they do.
I mean, when you're riding though, the only time you see what anybody's using is at the chairlift line, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're like, they can see it from everywhere.
Yeah, no, and that was the thing. And so like, all these subtle differences. And then I was like, okay, we want to market it different. I want to go for this sort of elevated, clean look, maybe a hint of like what a big fashion brand would be doing, but, keep it in a price point that's on par with everyone else. And so, it just really like, it all came together in an amazing way. And so there's meaning behind the name. We got the base graphic. It all just kind of came together in this beautiful way. And we launched around the Olympics 2022 in Beijing.
Yeah.
And so that was just like a mad dash to get over the finish line, because you're not allowed to use products at the Olympics if they haven't been in market for a certain time.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Because you can't just show up with like with Pepsi's the sponsor, Coca-Cola's a sponsor, you can't just show up with like a Pepsi snowboard. They're just like, no. Like you can't do, you know what I mean? You can't like hijack or whatever guerrilla market the Olympics. They're smarter than that. I think rumor had it, a girl showed up with like a Prada snowboard. On her base graphic was Prada, and they made her like paint over it.
No way.
Yeah, at the Big Air. But anyways, so yeah, luckily we didn't have to get painted, and we got it through in time and got to launch the brand as I kind of exited my career. Not kind of, but yeah. I guess kind of. I'm still doing a lot.
You're still doing stuff.
But competitively, I got to exit while kind of opening this new venture, which was pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Yeah. And talk to us about, speaking of the Prada and, some of these other, and Louboutin.
Yeah.
You've got a relationship, with, you've done a number of collaborations. Talk to us. I think it's Tiffany's that you've got a really good relationship with. Talk about the evolution of you kind of saying, okay, we're going to be that exclusive brand, and then you start figuring out how to do the collaborations. Talk to us about what was behind the scenes that people don't really understand about creating those types of relationships.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll see where white space in the brand goes in the years to come. Obviously, we're going to find the white space. We're going to look for that gap in the market and try to fill that void. But I remember my days working with Target stores. I had a clothing line there, and I remember they'd bring in these guest designers, and whoever the designer was, like, used to be at Gucci or used to do Tom Ford, whatever it was. Maybe not Tom Ford. Tom does Tom, but yeah, they bring in a designer, and then everybody lose their minds, like, oh my God, I'm getting this high end fashion brand at Target for this affordable price, and so. My whole thing was doing these big collabs with these big brands. So like we have a collaboration with Montclair, and they're selling, $3,000 puffy jackets, and we're selling, it's a much different price point. It's a different customer. I love the fact that I own my own brand, because this would never have been greenlit at any other sponsor of mine. But I was like, oh, let's collaborate. This is great. And we did a collaborative board together. That price point's obviously a lot higher because they command a higher price for their products, and they wanted us because, sometimes if you show up, let's say you show up to the track meet and you're wearing, your Gucci running shoes, people are like, what the heck? Like this is ridiculous, but if you showed up with Adidas collab Gucci shoes, you're like, well, I know Adidas makes great running shoes, and okay, now it's got the flair of the Gucci. Like they wanted that. They wanted our function to meet their faction have that credibility. So it's like an amazing collaboration with them. And so you're doing these like big things, but that's just kind of brand building for us. So now like you're a part of that Montclair thing. You're a part of some of that kind of high end feeling, but at this price point. And so it was like something I'd learned kind of at Target and some other places. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do these big brand collabs. And another one that was fun we did was a brand called Farm Rio, which is pretty insane. Every female, we only did a women's line, but every female, I get tagged in so much, and everyone that's at Aspen or Park City or whatever, they're all wearing this Farm Rio collab. And it's really been fun because our products are very simplistic. I like to think it's not like big, bright, colorful stuff. And that's what they do. They're all bright, they're patterns, they're color. And I remember him telling me the design or the idea for the ad they wanted to run. They're like, okay, like our model's gonna come in and do a backflip, and then she just turns into like a parakeet and flies down to Rio. I'm just like, okay, yeah, like let's workshop that. But yeah, okay, But it was just fun. It was fun to do something outside the box, and that's exactly what it was. Like no one had done something like that with them. No one has done the Montclair cola. Like, these are those white spaces. That's that something new to be done. And you mentioned Tiffany's. That one I'd like to address specifically because, when I was thinking about building the Snow League, jumping over to that, business, one of the first things I thought of was like, what are we going to do for the trophy? It's that subtle detail of like, what is it going to be that I hand somebody and they feel the weight, they look at it and they go, wow, I just did something really amazing.
Yeah.
I just became part of history. Like you look down at that Olympic gold medal, it's heavy. They put that on your neck. You're like, oh, okay. Like you feel the weight, you feel the magnitude. They're raising the flag. People are crying. It's like the anthem's blaring. Like it's a moment. It's a thing. It's like, I'm like, how do we recreate that for our event? Because there's been a lot of competitions that I've been to where I felt like not novelty, but just like the trophies were, they had a theme. One year it was like a dragon's shield, like a medieval times sort of, shield. Got a couple of those.
Yeah.
The one was like a sheriff's badge. One was like a manhole cover, like in the street, the storm drain cover.
Now, were these one of one, or did you get one too that you sort of keep? And the other people get it, but like, do you have like a secret room with these really dope?
They were just bizarre. I'm more just saying that the trophies were kind of all over the map.
Yeah.
And so if I had a room, it would be filled with some bizarre stuff. There'd be a dragon shield, a sculpture of a monkey. I won that in Japan. I've won, it was the Nippon Open. They gave this, it was like a monkey holding a snowboard with headphones and like, just these random things. And I was like, okay, like, I guess it speaks to, my accolades or whatever, my success having all these things out, but there was no kind of common thread. I was like, and nothing really, I felt like spoke to the magnitude of what I had accomplished at those events. Cause I'm like going for it. I'm doing tricks that are incredibly dangerous. I'm pushing the sport. I'm doing all this stuff and I'm winning big prize money. And this is the trophy. So anyways, long story short, I was like, it would be incredible to partner with Tiffany's for a couple reasons. Obviously, it's a high-end luxury brand. They're known for doing some incredible things, but they also make every single trophy out there for all the major sports. They make the Super Bowl trophy, the FIFA World Cup trophy, the MLB trophy. Like they make all these incredible trophies. And wouldn't it be nice to have snowboarding and free skiing on the same level as all these other traditional sports? And it speaks more to that in my mind than, oh, this is a Tiffany's trophy and oh, look how expensive it probably, you know what I mean? I'm saying our sport is now in the upper echelon of sports where everybody else is. And when you win, you get handed something really special. And, when the trophy was being made, there's this huge file, like the guy handwrites the notes. He takes all these notes down and he was taking the notes for the trophy and he opened this big filing cabinet and he's like fumbling through and, and right there, it's like the Super Bowl trophy, all these trophies. And like, boom, our file goes into that box with all those trophies. Wow. It was just like a historical moment. I was like, this is insane. This is the Snow League. Here we go. So everything kind of has a meaning behind it. I don't really do certain things just to do it. Everything's got a bit of an angle or something's happening. And that was the big reason why I was so thrilled to partner with Tiffany's.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Super. And you can tell that just in your planning, how you think about things, visualization that we talked about, you're pretty meticulous and the attention to the detail is really real. I think one of the things that is really interesting about the move that you made is, I mean, I remember the X Games and all this stuff and you're skateboarding and all that kind of stuff. And then the snowboarding thing and all that. You were competing as an individual, right?
Yeah.
And then now here you are, you're like, well, Snow League we're going to make it different. And business is a team sport too. Yeah. So talk about like you moving from executor and, strategist on, obviously your brand, your career and all that kind of stuff, but moving to like, I got to build businesses and all of the stuff around, building the business, not just the strategy, but actually having to deliver on all of the business operations and things like that. It's a team sport.
It is. It is. And that's something that like was a very humbling sort of, realization when I jumped in. I was like, oh, wow, because I can't do it all. I can't be there holding someone's hand that's doing the trophy while, meeting with the mountain owners and operators to like secure the venue and then pop out. And you know what I mean? There's just so much happening. And I can't be looking at the blueprints for the schematics of like what the structure is going to be like that we build. Like I'm getting the overall vision during these updates and these big meetings, but I can't be in the weeds. And so trusting the group and believing in the group. So it really, again, it's like, it taught me patience because I'm like, okay, not everyone's going to have the work ethic I have and not that sort of everything has to be perfect sort of chip on the shoulder of like, it's got to be this way. Like, this is the vision. It can't skew or sway at all. Like this, it has to be it. So, I kind of came to a realization that like, there will be mistakes. There will be things that go wrong and that's okay. And we got to band together to get it done rather than like, isolating somebody and being on their case for, messing something up. It's like, it's okay. I get where you're coming from. I appreciate what you did. And I understand your efforts. This is what I was thinking, but let's find a way to move forward together. It's more of like, you're building that relationship with everyone rather than, I used to just like, hammer myself with sort of those frustrations when I wouldn't compete well, I wouldn't do things well, but you can't, what's happening in my head to myself when I'm competing, that sort of, doesn't fully translate over to business, I find. But yeah, no, it was an interesting thing to switch to that. But I really love it. It's been such a humbling experience to have a team. And like when we did our last event, like we did a group shot at the bottom of the half pipe and it was like our crew, everyone's wearing their vests for Snow League and they're all just so proud of what we've created. And it's like, we're all in it together. And so when things go south, we band together to get back on track. And when things go well, there's a whole team to celebrate with. So it's really nice. It's really fun.
Like, it's almost like your superpower. Obviously we talked about the superpower at the beginning, which was like, oh, I've got ice in my veins. I love the pressure. I can deliver. But I think you're a curator, right? Yeah. You can imagine and curate these experiences. And it's because, you really, you have an understanding about where you want to go, but you also understand who you're doing it with.
Yeah.
And I think that really, that's a huge superpower.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. People always ask me like, what was the special sauce, especially because they have kids and they're like, I would like my kid to figure out what you did. So what did you do? What did your mom feed you? What was the secret ingredient that got you to this place? And, I think you hit it on the head. Like if you would say my power was it was creative. Yeah. It was always being a creative type where I was like, oh, like this, what if I did it this, just kind of thinking outside the box or like planning or scheming how, maybe not scheming, but like strategizing of like what my next move is going to be. It can
still be plotting.
Yeah. In my lair. But, it was that. And then the combination of like, kind of being told I wasn't going to amount to anything, that like my sport was not legitimate, that I was going to be, out in the streets if this thing didn't pan out and no one really, there was no clear path for me to success. It was all just kind of like, oh, I hope this works out. And so I was always fighting for every little bit of, I felt like what I was earning at the time. And then that sort of feeling was like just dedication to hard work. Cause I can't let it fail. I have to do this, and so, I grew up with asthma. I had tetralogy of Fallot. It was a congenital heart defect. I had multiple surgeries to correct that. They're like, your kid's going to be very inactive. He's going to be a sluggish, sort of slow child. And I was just like, you know what I mean? Like I was that horrible redheaded kid in your community, like chopping your rose bushes and stuff. Like I just had this energy. And yeah, it was just like perfect combination. And then obviously like a product of my environment. I forgot the book you just referenced. It was the Road to Success. It wasn't, I read the Malcolm Gladwell. The Outliers.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, wow, talking about the hockey players and what, month out of the year they were born, and that gave them a physical advantage over their other, peers, because they were just at that young age, your growth in a couple months can be staggering. And then they shuffle them they sort them into, A, B, and C rankings. And then the A team practices double the B team does. And then all of a sudden when they meet back up, it's not fair. They were bigger and they're better because they practice more. And so I started breaking down my life, and I was like, wow, there's so many coincidences that led to this place. I started riding at Big Bear in Snow Summit in California.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what if I grew up on the East Coast? What if I grew up in Colorado? I was like, well, the amount of days that I rode that were sunny and slushy were every day. It was never cold. Yeah. I was in a t-shirt or hoodie most of the time. The landings were soft. So if I crashed, I was just kind of forgiving. And the big mountains didn't want to have snowboarders. They didn't want big parks. They didn't want all that stuff. It was so early. And Big Bear was like, we'll take your money. Yeah, buy a lift ticket. And we'll put them over on that West Ridge. So West Ridge became that famous, amazing run. And there's a guy named Chris Gunnarsson that got his start building jumps at Snow Summit, who went on to build all the X Games parks, all the major events. So I had access to his jumps and his build and his creativity. So like right there, I'm in somewhere that's warm and sunny, it's forgiving, and I got access to these amazing jumps. And then the half pipe they built had a tow rope, right? So if you grew up here and had to take the chair, I'm probably getting like 2 or 3 runs for your every run. And if you would hike the pipe, you'd probably get like 1 less run. I'd still probably lapping you, probably like 2 runs for your every one of your run. But I have more energy because I'm not hiking all day. So my sessions are way longer. And you extrapolate that over a career, a lifetime, as a kid and going up every single weekend. And
that's a competitive advantage for sure.
Oh my God. There were so many of those crazy things that happened. And it was like, just so happened to pull up to the skate park and like Tony Hawk was there. Like it's going to your local music shop and it's like, Hendrix is there, just like, you want to try that trick? You should bend the note a little, like giving you pointers and tips and things. Like I had access to these guys that were the best in any sport, any business, anything. They tell you, go learn from the best. Go find the guy that's crushing it in real estate and go learn from him or her. Go find the person that is was or is leading the charge in tennis or whatever it is. Like find the masters at what they do and learn from them, you know? And so I had a lot of those things happen in my life where broken down, and then you add the determination, all that other stuff in there. And it was like, oh, that's why this makes so much sense. This all happened.
Yeah.
To me,
looking back.
Looking back for sure.
Well, you've been a creature of reinvention, right? But you've really like remained disciplined and you've really had, clearly you've had the drive. But as we wrap up, you maybe tell somebody that's like standing at the edge of their next chapter, what would you want them to know from you?
Yeah. I think the biggest for me was there's just no mistakes. There are no mistakes. If you learn from it, if you're constantly making the same mistake, like, okay, whatever, shame on you. Not even but just like,
the repeat mistakes.
If you're making mistakes and you're like, I'll never do that again, and you build from there. There's so many times on the snowboard, I was just like, I learned this horrible but valuable lesson of like what not to do. My face is split open. I'm getting 60 stitches and putting my lip back together, like after a bad accident in New Zealand. Like, but I learned a lesson, like what not to do. I was like, I'll never do that again. I'll never approach the half pipe when it's not perfect and try to push something, whatever it was, the lesson to be learned. So I would say it's okay to make the mistakes as long as you learn from them, and adjust and kind of formulate a new plan. And then I think you have to make up your mind. Like, what do you really want? And that's like the hardest thing, I would say. 'Cause like, if your heart's in it, then you're just kind of unstoppable, 'cause that's what you want to do, And that's a very hard question, because you might want it. It sounds good. Do you need it? Do you have to have it? Is that it? Is this like, because I'll tell you, when I was, again, I'll reference the time I crashed. I was sitting in the hospital. I'm in New Zealand. I had pulmonary contusions, and I'm spitting up blood in this bucket with this sort of humidifier in my nose so the blood doesn't coagulate in my lungs, and like,
dang,
forehead's cut open, faces explode. You know, I'm just all stitched up. And I was like, man, I really wanted to win this next Olympics. That was like, man, wouldn't that be great? And everything turned that night to like, I have to do this. I'm not going to have gone through all of this for nothing. And my heart was set on it. I was like, most people in my corner were like, this is a sign you need to retire. This is what's going to happen. And I pushed forward because that's what I believed in. If I didn't feel that way, I would have called it for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that. My gut is telling me this is it. That was a sign. I don't want this to happen again. But I made a decision in that hospital room. I was like, I'm going to push forward. I'm going to do it. I know the mistake I made. I'll never do that again. And here's how I'll do it. Here's the goal. I started visualizing, you know, start dreaming of the pants again. How do I get there? Like, what's it going to look like? What do I got to do? And I ended up, you know, going on to succeed. So I would just say, like, really ask yourself what you want and then formulate that plan, and then know that it's okay to make those mistakes, you know, and obviously you want to make the shots that are really important, but if you miss a few, that is okay. You know,
That's
you
awesome.
can push forward. So,
but it's like, you know, the lesson that your mom, you know, had you around people learn how to flip. You got to commit.
You got to commit.
Yeah.
You got to do it, you know, and it's great when there's people that believe in you, but you don't need that necessarily. If you got an idea and you got a vision, you got something that's pushing you and driving you, like, follow that gut, follow that thing. And there will be upsets along the way. I love the videos that show behind the scenes of me crashing and me just like breaking something. That's like, that's what it took to get there. When you see me at the Olympics or you see me at a competition, like, that's time to shine. I'm playing the concert at this point. Not me like writing the songs, stressing, how do I get there? Like, what do I got to do? No, that's the show. That's where I get to perform. That's why it's fun. That's why it's exciting. I get to like debut this thing I created, or this vision I'm unfolding. But all that hard work went in beforehand. You know, when the cameras weren't on, when I was tired and I didn't want to go, when I was being told by people to stop or that it wasn't going to pan out or all those things. It was just like, those are those moments where you got to kind of ask yourself, well, what is it that I want? And then go for it, you know, push forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's easier said than done. And I trust you. Like, you know, people are like, well, you're so successful or whatever. I'm like, dude, but there was a time where I wasn't. There was a time where I like, you know, I was like in the van. I remember brushing my teeth at the lodge when I was already pretty well known in the sport. And the kids were coming in and all their new gear and all their stuff. And I was just like, oh, hey, brushing my robe or whatever at the lodge bathroom. But yeah, like you push through and now I appreciate the things that I do have, and you kind of get the grit from having to fight for it. But yeah.
Well, it's always been entertaining watching your gift be alive in
Thank
front
you.
of all of us. So
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and spend some time with us, man. It really means a lot.
Right on. Thanks for having me.